My name is Brian Wish. I'm an entrepreneur, CEO, and pathfinder. If I've learned anything in life, it's that self-discovery is a critical part of living intentionally, building meaningful relationships, and achieving the future we see for ourselves. In July of 2021, I sold all my possessions, headed west, and began a quest to live a fuller and more meaningful life. The experience helped me truly understand the power of a single moment. And through my conversations with leaders from all walks of life, I've seen how that one phone call, heartbreak, diagnosis, or lost job can transform the entire course of our lives. In this podcast, I sit down with entrepreneurs, influencers, and experts across industries to talk through the events that changed everything. Together, we'll relive the make or break decisions, hard conversations, periods of despair and hope, chance encounters, and everything that followed. Molly Blomquist is a recognized authority in security and risk management with expertise in interrogation techniques, body language analysis, high-stakes negotiations, and security strategy and planning. Her distinguished career includes significant leadership roles within the U.S. government, including managing complex programs, advising senior policymakers, and leading global security initiatives. Her forte in strategic planning, risk management, negotiation, and comprehensive vetting processes were honed in demanding and dynamic environments, including high-threat areas such as Iraq and Pakistan. With her vast array of experiences, Molly continues to deliver value to corporate and private partners. Her leadership, innovation, and commitment to excellence make her a unique asset in the entrepreneurial and corporate world. Molly's life changed when she embraced discomfort, bet on herself, and embarked on a new journey. Hear her story on today's One Away Show. Molly, welcome to the One Away Show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So Molly, what is the one away moment that you want to share with us today?
So I don't know if there's one particular instant where I said this was the moment for the one away. I would tell you, I think it's a compilation. I grew up in southeastern Ohio, very humble roots, small town beginnings. And if you worked at UPS or FedEx, you're considered having a good job, lots of coal mining jobs there and very, very blue collar. Go to college, graduate from college, eventually start working for the government. In 2015, I start my first business almost 10 years ago. Coming from a background that's not business oriented, that's not your wheelhouse. Government jobs, UPS, things like that are considered the good, stable jobs. It was scary, but I decided to bet on myself. And the business took off, and it took off quicker than I thought. And I couldn't place the infrastructure in as quickly as I would have liked. And it taught me to bet on myself. And so I realized that I could do anything I wanted to, as long as I put in the effort and work. And that has proven true in life for me.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about your humble beginnings and also kind of noticing the opportunity and going for it. I would love to know the way you described your getting started is you never maybe envisioned or saw yourself in the realm of possibility doing what you've done. Was being an entrepreneur always on the radar, or was it something that just kind of came to you and you're like, I got to go for it? I'm just curious where this was in your GPS at the time of life.
So it wasn't, so much with my immediate family that it was something that was customary for us. Just as the more I traveled, the more I learned and experienced, I just really saw the freedom and opportunity that it could give you, and also to be creative, to be the master of your own fate. And when I started the business, I am so glad I was ignorant in everything you need to do to start a business properly, because I probably would have gotten so scared. I would have talked myself out of it. I mean, I learned copywriting, marketing, videos, you name it. I probably learned it and did it, especially when you're starting out. It just taught me how much you can learn if you really put your mind to it. And I found it fun. It just never seemed like work to me. And that's really a good marker of something you enjoy.
Sure. if you don't mind me asking, and thanks for articulating that, what was it that you saw though? Like what was the opportunity in the business that you decided to move on and build?
Freedom. A life for myself, a freedom location where I'd want to live, financial, just not being controlled, being able to pick my own destiny.
Were there times in your life that maybe you felt more constricted? Like if you were seeking freedom, was there ever times in your life where you felt constricted?
When I worked for the US government, and even in government contracting, look, my career was amazing. My time, incredible. I wouldn't trade the experiences. But you arrive at a certain time, you leave at a certain time. You have lots of rules, lots of regulations and parameters. And especially with the advent of technology and society, I mean, we are how the government does business internally and how society does. There's such a delta. You feel like you're a step back in time and you just don't have as much in the day to day. So that's why I started my own business to start creating that for myself.
Now, what drew you to government in the first place? I know, you can't maybe share all the details, but like, what was it about the government that was like, I need to, this was this path for you before you exited?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually started when I was young, probably 8, 9, 10 years old. We called him Uncle John. It was actually my grandmother's brother. He worked for the FBI. And when he would come visit us from Virginia, he would tell all these stories about being an FBI agent and his time in the FBI. And I would just listen to every word he said. And it was my first experience with seeing something outside of a very rural upbringing, understanding that there's life outside of there. And it mesmerized me. And college, my undergrad, I studied criminal justice, master's, I have an MBA, and I went to seek out government work after graduating college. So it was just something I always wanted to do. And honestly, I wouldn't be where I am today without that experience. Like I am forever grateful and only can say positive things about it.
It seems like you really, you were given a set of information and you were able to start to think about like your life ahead, like your pursuits, like reasoning around everything you've done. It sounds very like intentional. Like there was thought to like why you made these like decisions, government, and then to leaving government. When you talked about going back to what you said, betting on yourself, and then going to pursue what you did, what did you leave to pursue? Like what business did you go off and build? Like how did you see the opportunity that you went forth with?
I saw the opportunity just to create something that wasn't existing. My first business was in London. So it was actually in the UK. So again, not following a model, and it's dog training. So very unconventional is, people spend money on two things consistently: pets and kids. And I saw in the UK that, there's a lot of good trainers, there's great companies, but it wasn't to the American standard. And so a friend of mine had left the Marines, the Secret Service, and had commercialized dog training. So specialized obedience for your family pet, and was successful. And there was a market. And I'm looking at London, looking at all the pet lovers and the opportunity. And I thought, okay, I can do this, but what if I fail? The thought of not doing it was more than the thought of failing. I didn't want to have the regret. And so I self-funded it, bootstrapped it, and it worked out. And it's still going strong. I mean, we've been voted best of, I think, 7 years in a row. We've been in existence for 9.
And what's the name of the company for those that don't know?
Yeah, Off Leash Canine Training London.
Off Leash Canine Training?
Yeah, Off Leash Canine.
Canine.
Yeah, Canine Training London.
Got it. Okay. Do you only train canines?
Yeah, only dogs. Yeah. So, and we have people who have shipped their dogs from all over the world. They've flown them on a plane privately to us, sent them on a boat.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's been great.
Is there anyone really you have never expected who sent you their dog to take care of, that you took care of, that was a household name? Is there anyone you can share kind of stories behind the kind of dogs that you trained?
Yeah, I mean, we have like company wise. I mean, if you would look like that's been publicly released. I mean, Ryan Reynolds, Oprah Winfrey, lots of baseball players. And so we've trained when Game of Thrones was going on. We trained some of the actors' dogs on Game of Thrones. That was really cool. And then you have a lot of artists and musicians, and some just want to remain private. They might be very happy with the product, but they just don't want their name attached for various reasons, and that's fine.
Is this like a dog's version of cotillion school?
It could be. I mean, the part of it is making it fun for the dog and having them understand that discipline equals freedom. And so when they're doing what's expected, they get a lot more freedom because that gives the owner confidence. And then the owner is more engaged and happier to take the dog out because he or she knows how their dog's going to behave. And so you're just increasing the well-being and the lifestyle between the pet and the owner. And so really, from an altruistic standpoint, seeing that is incredible when you see the look of joy on the owner's face and you see the look of joy on the dog's face. And then even the harder cases, dogs who were said to be put down, who were said they weren't untrainable or they were too aggressive, and we're able to get them to the best versions of themselves. They're never going to be a perfect dog. Dogs aren't robots.
Sure.
But giving them a different life and a better life, it's incredibly rewarding.
I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, I've never heard of anyone that's trained dogs before. What are you doing with these dogs? Is it some special food that you're giving them and it's just like a magic potion? Or like why would Oprah send you her dog? What are you doing to make this dog behave and be trained in a way that's polite and disciplined?
It's a credit to the program. And so it's teaching the trainers how to properly train the dogs and how to work through it. You're constantly in contact, communicating with the dog. And every dog is different. Some dogs are more confident, some are less. And so it's really the skill of the trainer and then repetition. Just like anything, like when we go to the gym, the more consistent we are, the more we see results. If we're not as consistent, we can't expect it. So that's the biggest key in the business is making sure that you're communicating with the dog properly and consistency.
Even more specifically, just because I'm curious, does discipline, consistency, understanding the dog's personality, like give me a day in the life of a dog and like average duration. I'm just like, I'm trying to understand like what it takes for a dog to come in very rude and impolite to like this servant dog that you can be taken home. Like, what's that process look like? And what do you do?
Yeah, so nothing will be cookie cutter because every dog really is different. Some days, if they're picking up commands better than others, maybe the sessions are a little bit longer. If the dog is struggling a little bit to learn the command or getting frustrated, maybe it's shorter duration of training and going back and then honoring those small moments. Training should always be fun for the dog and it should always be safe. So some dogs, like dogs who are skittish, you want them trained in a much more controlled environment for them to help start to build their confidence. Dogs who aren't skittish, who are super happy and fine to be around people, well, maybe they can be introduced to distractions a little bit more. So really, it's a day in the life is paying attention to where the dog is and adjusting.
It's so interesting to know that you have these incredible animals running around and you're turning them into better creatures for their pet owners. So giving away a dog is like giving away a kid to a degree. Like, how do you communicate with the people who sent you their dogs and kind of give them progress? Like, what was the update or status reports and how did that work?
Yeah, so there's an app called the Pet Loop app.
Yeah.
And so it's specifically for when the dog's in training. And so that's where everything is communicated. Photos, text, updates. So every day the trainer is communicating with the owners. Here's a video, here's a photo, here's what your dog learned. And then at the end of training, there's a 1 to 2 hour turnover where the trainer shows the owners what the dog's learned, but then teaches the owners how to give the commands. Because again, it's follow through. Training doesn't end once the program ends. It's being consistent throughout. So we teach the owners how to maintain the commands. But yeah, every day they receive an update. I mean, even for me, you might hear him. He's down by my feet making noises and snorting. But even when I travel and my dog's not with me, I want to see a photo of him every day or just know that he's okay. So it's the same thing. You're alleviating a concern.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Seems like a good model and way to keep owners abreast of what is happening. And it's also, when your dog Molly's not perfect and doesn't behave beautifully. I'm not going to be able to trust that, like, you know how to train a dog, because, uh, so
He's pretty well behaved. He's also very lazy.
you mentioned bootstrapping this business. I mean,
Mhm.
impressive. How does a business like this, like, did you have financial skills? How did you think about scaling this? Like, what would you do I mean, you built this into a pretty significant business. Like, did you, knowing what it is today, like, what did you see when you first started, and are both true?
So I saw the potential, but I didn't have a background in building businesses. I actually didn't really have, even though I have an MBA, that wasn't my field because I was working for the government. And so being an entrepreneur and learning all the different facets of a business, invoicing, payroll, accounts receivable, SEO, blogs, marketing, advertising. I mean, I would just spend every non-working and waking moment researching, reading, improving, and a lot of times failing. I'm glad I was blissfully ignorant to some of what it takes to build a business, because I think I probably would have, my fear is I would have gotten scared and talked myself out of it and came up with excuses. And so sometimes when you're not aware and you're just moving forward and you're just charging, it's the best path. So a lot of it was adjusting on the fly and figuring it out. I wish I had a good blueprint, but I didn't. I just thought if I fail, I fail, but at least I tried. I can say that I put myself out there and I attempted to do something out of my comfort zone.
Totally understand, like, you had the MBA, but, like, maybe it wasn't your field, and, like, you've never done this before. But how does a dog training business like this scale to a multi-million-dollar business? What did it take once you kind of had the working model? Is it new locations? Was it just bigger, like, real estate to, like, have more, like, how did you scale this business when it sounds like it's pretty service intensive?
It's having the trainers. You have to scale it, opening new locations, increasing your team, and then also increasing the team that does the sales. I mean, I remember I used to get up sometimes 5, 6 in the morning, 4 o'clock sometimes, returning emails, doing things, and then I'd go to work all day, and then I'd leave work, I'd come back, and then I would work until I went to bed, and I was making all the sales calls. It's just impossible now. So putting in an infrastructure and also sometimes just doing it wrong. You learn the right way to do it by doing it wrong.
What would you have done differently knowing what you know now?
I would have tried to put in a team sooner and not tried to take on as much myself. But that's a double-edged sword, because if you're self-funding it, you also have to have, the more team you have, the more you have to pay. There's payroll. So it's kind of that dance. I would say the biggest thing that I think I learned is it's okay to turn business down if you're not hiring the right people. Because if you, especially in a service intense business like this, I mean, these are people's pets, which are an extension of their family. If you hire the wrong trainer, that can be devastating. And so I have learned I would rather have more demand than I have the ability to fill, than have a large staff.
They can't fulfill.
And we're not delivering that value and that service, because it's not fair to the dog, to the owner, or to the trainer. So I mean, I really, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It is always about quality over quantity.
Yeah. How much did your government background influence how you showed up as a leader for the business that you built? Like, where did you see yourself and the skill sets from government come into you as a business owner?
Sure. I think that's a great question. I would say it heavily influenced it. I mean, with the government, it's discipline, it's rigor, it's a lot of consistency. You need that as a business owner. You have, like, on the days, and you know this, the days you don't feel like getting out of bed, the days you don't maybe feel like responding to an email or addressing something, putting it off doesn't make it better. It is working through it, communicating with your team, being there for them, supporting them, allowing them, if a mistake's made, okay, well, what did we learn? How do we get better? And those types of things, people will follow people they trust and they like. If I was inauthentic, if I was just in it just to try to make as much money as I could, I don't think I'd still be in business. Because again, these are people's pets. You have to hire the right people and put in the right protocols. Because the only thing that's better than training is the safety and care of the dog. Training is secondary. So you have to make sure you have the right protocols in place. Or a business like this, you'll be out of business pretty soon.
Yeah, it comes with a lot of weight and responsibility. I mean, you're caring for some of the most important parts of people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, I love my little guy. You know, I have an almost 9-year-old French bulldog. You know, his name's Meatball, and he looks every bit like a meatball. And if anything happened to him where it was lack of care, I would be devastated.
You don't have a sister dog form named Spaghetti?
No. I think now, you know, he's the king of the castle. I think he would.
You're depriving him of an essential ingredient.
I think he would be upset. I think he likes being the only.
He likes being the alpha.
Yes, I think he likes being the king.
You've sounds like you've trained him to be a confident dog.
Yeah, he's a rescue, and so he actually had a lack of confidence. It's just, you know, love, care, training, consistency over time. Yeah, he's full of himself now. He's really grown into. He's a pretty happy guy. He has a good life.
It sounds like you pampered him well. So let me ask you a question: If you took a lot of your lessons from government and you applied it to dog training, and if I said to you, I want you to take those skills, Molly, and apply that to a human, do you think there's translation on that side of it as well? Like
100%.
And how so? Tell me more.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's reward, right? If you look at the 4 quadrants, you have positive reward, negative reward. And so those are the 2 big ones, right? And so people love praise. And if somebody's doing something that you like, oh my gosh, you are incredible. Thank you so much. When you do the dishes after dinner, like this is just, it's so great. So that's encouraging probably your partner or significant other to do something. If it's like, you know what, after dinner, I wish you weren't so lazy. Could you just do the dishes? You're leading people to behavior. And so that's part of it. It's the same with dogs. People like positive affirmation and people like boundaries. And it's just consistently doing that. And it's also observing, you know, being a curious learner and paying attention to people, situationally aware. People will tell you how they're feeling without even saying anything, looking at their body language. Are they open and engaged? And then do they suddenly get closed off because the topic changed or something happened? All those things, if you're paying attention, just like when you're training a dog, humans give you markers. And you can read and you can explore that to find out whether you should ask more involved questions in a certain area. Maybe you should change topics or just check in with them. Hey, this seemed to be maybe a little sensitive. I didn't mean that. Can you tell me what you're thinking, what you're feeling? But it's staying in tune with the person that you're interacting with.
Interesting. Except that person talks back and dogs don't talk back.
Well, they can bark back. Yeah, they still have their, you know, they have their ways.
So no, it's so interesting to hear kind of your insight into kind of how you've developed yourself as an individual, an entrepreneur from the government, and how that translates into training dogs. And I think what I'm noticing and picking up from you is like the level of detail, discipline, and care to do everything that you've done is, I think, remarkable.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
And to scale that level of care, like how do you scale care and intimacy? Like, I know that's not what you're all about, but like how do you do that and to build a scaling business? That's fascinating to think about, which is what you've done. It's like people giving you their true child for months at a time and saying, go forth. So I think a lot of interesting insights and lessons. Molly, you have so I missay this, please correct me, but a like ability and art around negotiation tactics, around what's the other word that you were telling me? I should have asked. Is it negotiation? Fully?
Negotiation, interviews, interrogations.
Interrogation.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, thank you. Interrogation, negotiation. I would love to understand what you can share a little bit more about your interest in kind of in that space and anything that you can kind of start us off on.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. And so to go back to your original question, sort of like your one away moment, that's why I don't think it's just one thing for me.
Sure.
You know, so, growing up, as I mentioned, in Southeastern Ohio, humble beginnings, but it taught perseverance, hard work, determination, even teamwork. I played sports. And so it's just a fantastic foundation. And learning, and then joining the government, and then traveling the world, and even things I did prior to the government. And so when I used to do interviews or interrogations, however you call them, we're trained. And there's two big things: the art of questioning and the art of reading body language. Mm-hmm. When you can combine them together, that's truly where the magic happens. And it's not as intimidating as some people think, like the words sound. It is like if you're in a business strategy meeting and you're going in and you're watching somebody's body language, you and I don't need to know each other. But if you're typically a jittery guy and you're moving around, and then we get to a specific question, whether it's we're talking about reaching a financial settlement, or we're looking at an acquisition, and all of a sudden you become stoic. That's a shift. Or if you largely...
Tell me more. You're talking about a financial settlement, and you become stoic. What does that tell you?
That can tell you that they're either uncomfortable or they're thinking. Or if they sit still and they start moving, kind of like this, that's called an anchor shift. And so it's a change of behavior. And something doesn't always necessarily mean that it's something. It's to keep note of. When you go back to the same questions or topics, is the same behavior observed. Mm. So that could it could kind of give you insight. Are they nervous about something? Are they uncomfortable? Are they excited? And so it gives you points to explore. And that's how your line of questioning can go. You can rephrase your line of questioning. So like the power of no questions. And so if you think somebody may want to drop out or back out of a deal, you could say something like, hey, I'm kind of getting the feeling that you want to drop out of this. Are you quitting on me? People don't like to hear that word quit. So, oh, no, I'm not quitting on you. Well, okay. So then you follow up with an open-ended question. Well, what's going on? Like, tell me what you're thinking. And then you got their commitment that they're not wanting to leave. And then hopefully they'll then open up about what's going on in their minds.
Mm. This is how you're going to help founders raise money, then go to investors and ask investors if they're quitting on them?
It can, yeah. It can lead into a lot of people just go in that I have my number, I have my talking points, and I must get this across. And it's like a bull in a china shop where building rapport, showing empathy, showing understanding, listening, that makes people feel more comfortable with you and more apt to do a deal. I mean, in your life, are you more likely to want to engage with somebody who you feel it's a conversation, or somebody who's talking at you and just trying to potentially just impose their will to get their way?
Super interesting. So it seems like you've really studied body language. You've studied how people respond. You've studied patterns around people on video, people in person. I mean, is this something you're just constantly, it's like your eye is just so much sharper, so you're constantly analyzing who you're talking to and kind of or is it something that just kind of shows up when you're in certain situations? I'm just curious how this, we walked for a couple hours, were you analyzing every move and sentence of it? It's how do you, that's what I'm getting at. How do you turn this on or off, or is it always on?
So I'll give you two different answers. If you ask some of my specific loved ones, they would say it's always on, and it's probably annoying to them because they feel that I'm always looking for something. I will tell you, I don't feel that's the case. But I do think when you have this type of background and you have this type of skill set, you are just in general a more situationally aware person, just regardless. But when I go into a conversation with family, friends, loved ones, there's not the agenda. But I will say I feel I can become more attuned if I do believe that the energy is off, or the body language or something seems maybe uncomfortable. Maybe I'm quicker to ask follow-up questions.
Can we role play here a little bit? Can I give you a scenario and ask you how you go about it? I'll keep it to business. Let's say an employee embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars in a corporate company. And there's a suspicion around that, for whatever reason, you can't prove it all, but there's a case to be made,
Right.
you need to ask certain questions
Mm-hmm.
to uncover certain layers to like verify and validate like that is what is going on.
Yes.
Like, what would your approach be?
If a company has suspicion that an employee is embezzled, one of the first things they should do is forensics. So to see, where it could be, where the money could have gone. So I would ask for a digital forensics to see if it can be proven who took the money. So you have that because that's proof. Assuming that was not there, because that wasn't really your question, is, they can't figure it out. They're trying to whittle it down. It goes to one-on-one interviews and asking them. And you're asking them in a question, it's a conversation style. It shouldn't be adversarial. It shouldn't be antagonistic. And the art of the interview is you control the room, you control the conversation and tempo, sometimes without the other person knowing it. It doesn't have to be stated in a dominant way. And I would use high-low questions, such as, if somebody took this, do you think that they took just 100,000, or, could it be 1 million? And you start to see what they'll start to give answers. And what do you think should happen to somebody if they're caught stealing this? Why would somebody do this?
What's a high-low question?
So a high-low can be, you're offering two alternatives, right? So we know 100,000 stolen. Do you think it could be up to 1 million? Or do you think it's just this?
Oh, it's like really getting under their skin. Like, it's like, wow.
And you're seeing how they respond. And then, why do you think somebody would do this? Then you're hearing what people say for their motivations. Some people may say, oh, maybe there was a family issue. They just really needed the money, or, a crook. And so it'll give you clues. And again, you're watching with body language. You're mirroring up the two, and that'll help drive line of questioning. So does somebody start squirming a little bit more when you're talking about it, when you're asking specific questions? Are they open the entire time? Who would do this? And see if, honestly, see if they rat out their coworkers. And you'd be surprised the amount of people who would do that. But
Sounds
just
like you've seen this live.
I've done, yeah. I've had embezzlement cases.
I knew I was onto something.
Yeah, and I have never had to use any type of like force, raise my voice, any type of coercive tactics. It's all about the art of the conversation and paying attention to how they're responding to you. And knowing where to go. There is something to it. I mean, it can be energy draining, but you'll get your answer.
So how do you apply these skills to everyday life? I mean, if you're not interrogating someone for like a super clear out, like how does this show up for you, Molly, and like the application at a life level or philosophical level for like how you lead your life? Like what are the things you're thinking about, looking at, observing, analyzing with this perspective that you maybe otherwise wouldn't?
I would say you don't have to be an expert in this to be an expert, but like to make it really simple, if it feels bad, it is bad. Trust your gut. A lot of times with us as humans, we intuitively know if something is off or something's right, and we ignore it sometimes for various reasons. If you just stay in tune, it really guides you. I can think of times where I haven't listened to my gut and I should have, and I've made the wrong decision, or I've listened to it and the right things worked out. I think we all can have those types of things.
But how does that relate to interrogation? And the questions that you're asking, and like maybe
because you're being in tune, you're paying attention. It is active listening. It is active engagement, and you're connecting with the other person. At the end of the day, we're all human, and most people want to feel a connection. And so you're chatting with them, and you're getting them so comfortable and so relaxed that they feel that whatever they tell you, nothing bad is going to happen to them.
What you're telling me is it becomes easier to interrogate and pull things out of people when they trust you.
Correct.
Should be careful how close I get to you.
Yeah, maybe that's wise words. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing.
You've been a delight. I wouldn't pin you for one to take advantage of people in conversations, but
never. Not my character.
Like let's seek these skill sets. Like tell me how they're applied across different industries. Like what's the use cases beyond embed? Like where do you see these skill sets showing up across the board for you, given just your experience? Like what does, yeah, I'm curious about like being on this journey in the field and like how these are being applied across industries or different scenarios. Like what does that look like tangibly?
Yeah, sure. So I get asked to do a decent amount of speaking engagements. So teaching the art of, and it's the mix of body language and interview skills. And then when you're looking at different business areas, a lot of times attorneys are very interested. It's the phrasing that they're most interested in when they're presenting something to a client or presenting something to the other attorney. They're very interested in how things are phrased and perceived. Also, I get a lot of CEOs and executives who are not aware of their own body language or of awareness of the room and teaching them those skills. And then purely from an HR perspective, when you consider onboarding and interviewing, are you training your staff to ask the right questions and to pay attention and to do the proper follow-ups? The utility, I mean, it's across the board. We also, there's a lot of family offices that when they interview for people to welcome them into family offices or people working for high net worth individuals, there's a certain vetting that they want, whether it's a personality assessment or a behavioral assessment. You're basically looking at markers and providing an assessment of indicators. So if you think somebody would have a higher indicator, for say risk taking, and it's a very conservative office, you might want that their behavior be outside the norm of what you're looking for. And so there's just a lot of applications for it.
You're spinning so many ideas of people I feel like I should introduce you to, and also you got technology that scans a room and it reads and gives you feedback, or a voice, like I'm sure with voice as well, like voice technology.
It is, yeah. And and we haven't really spoke about that much too, but voice is a great way too to tell where people are. Are they engaged with you? And then has the conversation changed or questioning changed? Did the voice drop? Did it become slower? Did the rate of speech change? Did the pitch change? All those things are huge indicators. But with technology, with AI, I mean, the biggest thing with voice now are voice scams.
Molly, I feel like we should do a part two. I want to be respectful of time. I mean, this has been fascinating. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. I really appreciate you sharing with us today. I think this was a really insightful episode and super neat to hear how you went from dog, the government to the dog training and then developing these skills. I mean, you've had I think you've lived 9 lives in your career, and I'm so impressed and want to know more. I know you're sharing more, Molly. You're out there a little bit letting people know about what you've learned. Where can people find you and reach out to you?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, Molly Blomquist. My last name spelled BLOMQUIST, or www.mollyblomquist.com.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Brian, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on the One Away Show. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, please leave a review and follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Have a one away moment you'd like to share? Follow me on Twitter or Instagram at BrianWish_, or reach out to me on LinkedIn and tell me about the moment that altered your life. The One Away Show is produced by Arcbound, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs, experts, and visionaries launch authentic personal brands. From message development to podcast production, social media content generation, and book writing, we work with you to create your arc. Head to arcbound.com to learn more. Thank you for listening, and please join me next time on The One Away Show.